Okay, so last time we focused on the site and setting the site up. What we have right now is a box kind of floating in the air. And this is the site that we kind of took from that Revit file and kind of made it our own. And this is kind of like the easy method, so to speak, or easier method, I think. And I think the one thing you'll note, there is a bit of a retaining wall along here in the original Revit file. We're just going to ignore that briefly. We might add that in later as more detail, but I think right now what I want to do is show you how to just get going and get a project out. And so first thing I'm going to do is set up sheets. And so I'm going to go to new sheet down here, or go up to the view tab, and we can go to new sheet here. And we're going to go to this title block here for a second. And for those that are in my Revit class, we've created our own title block, but I'm going to show you to take that a step further, specifically for this class. So let's go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family. I'm going to switch my region because it likes to show up as United Kingdom. I'm going to switch mine to US Imperial. And then we're going to go down to title blocks here. And I'm going to pick this 11 by 17 title block. And for a project like this, what I like to do is I like to grab this title block and click B11 by 17. And then what I'm going to do is edit family. And I'm going to start by clicking File, Save As. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually save this and call it blank. So it's going to be wrong folder. So we'll call this GBC 11 by 17 horizontal, but I'm going to write after dash blank. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because I'm going to make it blank. There's not going to be any information on this title block. And the purpose of me doing that is actually for you, for Illustrator or Photoshop, so you can actually export a view to scale and bring it in there. You don't have to delete the title block or anything like that. So it kind of gives you a blank canvas to start on. So the first thing I'm going to do though with that is I'm going to grab these perimeter boundaries. Sorry, these outer 4 lines. I'm just holding the control button on the keyboard. These outer 4 lines, and I'm going to go up here to the pin button, and I'm just going to pin them. And pinning is kind of like locking. So we're just going to lock those. And then what I want to do is actually just grab all of this content and delete it. And all we want to be left with is this title block. And so when we print this correctly, these outer lines, if we have them set to title block or invisible, I'd probably go title block. They should show up at the edge of the sheet, so they should not print, so they should not be there. And so we're just going to load this into our project, and we'll save it. And now this is kind of a great way to export views and information from Revit into different programs like Illustrator and Photoshop. And so last part of this was we have to click this title block, and we just have to change it to our GBC blank title block. And I think, again, this gives us a great way to just start off. And so let's create a few sheets. So over on the left-hand side here, we can right-click and we go to New Sheet. And we're going to click our blank one. Let's do this a few times. And depending on what you're doing, I would probably recommend with something like this project in Studio to export every view separately, because then you'll have control over what it is. I mean, you could do some of your stuff together, but it just might be easier that way. So let's grab our first sheet here, and let's just drag our site over. And so you can see our site is too big. So let's double click in, and we're going to change the scale of our site. Maybe we'll go down to 1 to 40 maybe. And I double click to get out of the view, and we go to 1 to 40. And let's hide this original PDF. So I'm just going to right click hide. And so that's our site. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click in. And we're going to turn on our crop box, and we're going to crop the view. So this is our view crop. And so what I want to do is I want to bring this in a little bit so it doesn't show everything. Like, we don't need to see kind of the boundaries of this. So maybe something like that. Bring this top part in a little bit. And with that, we might want to adjust the graphics a little bit. And so to adjust the graphics, I like to turn on this line weight button up here at the top, just so I can really see the line weights associated with things. And so let's start by going to VG, and we're going to go down here to our topography. In this case, my topo solid. So if you're in Revit 2023, it'll be a topo solid, and Revit 2024 would be a topography. And I like to set these primary and secondary contours as some sort of grayscale. So for me, I've set up these grays. So we have 220, 240, 200. And so when I'm selecting these, it's just the red, green, and blue that are changing. So if you don't have those set up, which you probably don't, just you can enter those numbers. So if I say 220 red, 220 gray, it'll be 220 red, 220 blue, 220 green. So that's just kind of how that works. So let's just pick 200 for a second. And for secondary, let's pick, I always get these ones mixed up, so let's maybe pick 140. And I like to pick a grayscale because it just simplifies it a little bit. So I think I picked that backwards. So I think we want to make the, yeah, we just want to flip that around. So let's go back to VG. And we're going to go to topography again, and our topo solids again. And let's just make this one the 141. And let's make this one the 200 one. And then we can also adjust our line weight. So the 200 one that's lighter, let's make it line weight 1. We can change the actual pattern itself. Sometimes I like to go to like a dot pattern, so maybe do dot 1/16, and it just makes it a little bit, I guess, quieter. It's not as like bold and in your face with the topography. And this one we can do the same. So same one. Go to this one. So this one maybe we'll go to the line weight of 3. And we'll change this to be dot, but we'll make it a bigger dot, maybe a dot 1/32. And let's click apply and see that. And so you can kind of see how there's a hierarchy. You can see how there's one line that's a little bit stronger than the other. But I think right away this starts to look a little bit better graphically. So let's click VG again. These elevation tags, I'm not a really big fan of them. I think it's kind of redundant information, especially if you're already oriented your project towards north. You know, the north is north. So I tend to turn these off. So I'm just going to go over to my annotation tab, and I'm going to go to elevations, and we're just going to uncheck this elevation button. And that'll turn those off. And if I hit apply here, you can see them off. We have our project base point and our survey point. Let's turn those off as well. So let's go to site, and we have our project base point and survey point. And we also have our property lines here. I'm actually going to override my property lines, and let's change the line weight to like 6, because we want those property lines to really stand out. Maybe 6 is actually not even bold enough. Let's go to 8. Because we want our property lines to be clearly articulated where our property is. And so you can just see instantly now by making a couple of those changes, your site already looks quite a bit better. And this little line and dimension here, this is from when I rotated the site, so we can delete these. And then the next thing with this exercise would be just getting a few more things on sheets. So we've got our floor plans, so we can drag our first floor over. And then our second floor really becomes our roof, so we can call this, we can rename this as roof. So just right click, rename, call that roof. Probably want to do that in caps, but just for now, that's fine. I think roof plans they're not always required for projects like this, but sometimes they're really nice to see what's going on. And with our 2 floor plans, let's just go to VG for a second. We're going to go down to our topo solids. We're going to turn off our topo solids because we really only want to see our topo solids in the site file. We don't need to see it in every file. So I'm going to turn it off in the topography, I'm going to turn off the topography and the topo solids just in case you're using 2023, not 2024. And we're going to go over to our annotation categories. We're going to go to our elevations as well. And I'm just using the first letter, which is E, to get to that. And let's click apply. And let's see. Why did all that not turn off? Oh, it's because I didn't double click into my view. Let's do that again. Let's go to T for topography. Let's turn that off. Let's go to E for elevations. Turn that off. Let's hit apply. All right, there we go. That's better. And then one more thing that I like to do in the floor plans is just grab our walls, and we're going to add a cut pattern. And I like to add all my solid fills as a background pattern. And the idea behind that is if you have wall layers and you set this to gray, it's going to keep the walls gray, but it's still going to show those wall layers. So it's kind of a nice way to have a hybridization between them. If you don't want to show the wall layers, there's a couple ways to do that. We could just change click this visible button for the foreground pattern and just turn that off. And that'll turn off kind of the wall layers. And so let's just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to grab all these walls. Right now I'm using a generic 8-inch wall. And so let's just change this to brick on metal stud. And so right now you don't see any layers. Even if I change this to fine detail, we still see, we still see the layers, but we don't see the hatches. So that's what that was. If we want to not show the layers, we can just change this to coarse view. And we don't see those layers. And then if I go back to our VG here, and I can turn on this, and there might be, if I change this to fine detail, you'll see that the brick has a bit of a layer there. So I think initially it might be nice to show the wall layers, just so that when you're talking with your studio prof, you can understand what those wall layers are. There's actually a way to make them a bit more muted though. So what I do is we'll go back into VG, and we're going to go down to our walls. And so we use this 200 gray. I'm going to go to my cut lines, and I'm going to change this to be 180 gray. So just the layers of the walls are just one lighter or one darker. So I could also go to 220. And so what that's going to look like is this. So you're going to still be able to see the wall layers, but they're a little bit more faint. So let's just fix that up a little bit more. So let's go to walls, and let's change our line weights to 1. Or maybe let's change them a little bit heavier. Let's go 3. And we can turn off, we can change our common edges to be that same 220. And let's just see if that fixes all that. Yeah, so that's good. And you can see our hatches a little bit darker there. So maybe let's go to our foreground and just change the color. We're not going to change the hatch, but just change the color to be that same 220. And so this has kind of muted the wall a little bit. So you kind of still see the layers, but when you zoom out, it reads like a solid line. So I think that starts to look a little bit better with your project. And you can do that solid gray or solid black. I'm just showing solid gray because with gray, you can obviously see the layers. With black, you won't really be able to see the layers. So which is fine if you don't want to show them. And then again, we can just toggle to our coarse view just to make that completely solid as a wall. So you know the layers are there, but then you can hide them. I think, again, it might be initially for the next couple weeks to show wall layers. I think that might be nice. But then when you get to week 15, you maybe don't want to show them because you want it to look like a pristine set of drawings. So that's some things you can do there. Let's just bring in our section a little bit here. And so this is our roof view. So let's just go to here, and I'm not going to apply a view template. We've talked a little bit about view templates in the Revit class, but we'll just simply go to VG, and we're just going to turn off all those same settings. So we're going to go to our elevations, turn off that. We're going to go to our topography. We're going to turn off those. Those are turned off. That's good. We'll go to our walls. We'll make this our 220. We'll make this our 200, and make this one solid fill. And then again, just with the wall layers, let's change this to be our 220, and we'll change the line weight to be 3. And our common edges would be that same 220. And so that just cleans up those walls. And so now you have a really nice presentation of elements. You have your site plan, which looks really nice. With your site plan, the other thing I would recommend you do is you take your walls and you grab a filled region under annotate. So annotate filled region. And we're just going to trace our walls with a box and click the check mark. And we're going to add a solid hatch to this. I'm probably not going to make it black like that because I think it's a little bit strong. So let's go into here and let's call this solid gray. And I like to use different grays, so let's maybe call it solid gray 200. And we'll change our color to be that 200 gray. And I just have these set up because it's easier for me and I use them a lot. But you can easily just type that in. So now we have this solid gray. And what we can do now is just add a text note saying proposed building. And so now we have a very clear and articulate site plan showing our property lines, showing our building location, and you can really see what's going on. Our floor plans, I think they're looking pretty decent. Obviously, we don't have a lot of information in there, but they have some information. The next thing that you can start to add to your floor plans is what's called a room tag. So under here we have, under the architecture tab, we have this room button. And the room's going to place this X, and this X is the actual room, and then the tag itself is what it says room. So those are kind of the two elements of this. So the X, again, is the room, and so we can delete the tag, and the X actually is still there. And if that happens, you can go up here to tag room, and then you can just re-tag that same room. And so we can call this, let's call this workshop, because that's the building you're doing right now is a bicycle workshop. I find this tag is a little bit heavy. And so we have some options here. We have tag with area, which I think is good, but I want to make this a little bit cleaner looking. So let's go to edit family. And we've done a little bit of family editing in this class, but we haven't really edited a lot of tags and symbols or anything like that. And so with this room tag, we see the area and volume down here. Let's just click VG. And we're going to go over to annotation categories. And you see how this is turned off? We want to turn that back on. When we turn that back on, we see this box. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this box. I'm going to get rid of this number. I don't really care about the room number, especially for design. Might care about it for construction drawings, but not for design. So I'm going to remove that room number. We have volume. I don't think we really need volume for this. And we have our area. And so let's bring this area up a little bit. Let's bring the room down a little bit so they're a little closer together. This room, let's change the text size because right now we're using bold 1/8. That's pretty big text size. I like to make a lot of my text 1/16 of an inch, which I think is around 2 millimeters, something like that. And so I like to make a lot of my text around 1/16 because I think it's a really good text size for everything. I just try to keep everything that text size. So let's call this bold 1/16. And we're going to change this to 1/16. And we're going to make another one, just call it 1/16. And we're going to change this to 1/16. So let's just reselect this as the bold 1/16, and we're going to click OK. So again, that got a lot smaller, but that's good. And so we just want to make sure these don't overlap. This one, we're going to make just non-bold, so that's just going to be our square footage like that. And again, we can bring that up a little bit. You could make the square footage a little bit smaller if you wanted, but I think that's fine like this. And then we're going to go over here to edit. And in here we have our area. And what we want to do is we want to add another area parameter. And we want to make it in metric. So we want to have essentially an alternate in units. We want to show it in metric and imperial because I think that'll just be useful for us to have both. So right now we're showing this in square feet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to show this into square meters always. square meters. We can do 2 decimal places and symbol, and we'll click OK. We'll suppress trailing zeros, which is just going to make our length of our name tighter, and we'll click OK. And so this will start to show in that. We're going to click a new. We're going to create a new parameter. Actually, let's add another area parameter. That's actually easier. So we're going to add another area parameter. This one, we're going to click on the same little button here, and we're going to make this one in square feet. And we'll make it square feet, 2 decimal places. We'll make that SF, and we'll suppress trailing zeros, same thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a prefix to the square feet. I'm going to write space on the keyboard and then bracket. And then over here, I'm going to write a close bracket. So it's going to have a space, and then it'll be open and close bracket. And now what this is going to look like, let me change this to be 15. And so now what this is going to look like is this. So it's going to be 15. Actually, let me just add the meter squared. I'm just going to put M2, and this will be SF. And so now we have this room tag that shows us square feet and square meters. So let's go to File, Save As, and we're going to save this as our room tag. We'll call this GBC room tag. GBC room tag. And let's load that into your project. You don't have to use GBC on your names, but I like to use it just to help organize myself in this class. Typically I would not. And so we're going to go up here to this, and we're going to go room tag with area. And you can see how this is kind of a way tighter room tag. And we see now our room in square meters and square feet. So we can do a little bit of adjusting. So you'll notice that up here we have all these settings. Let's kind of remove those. So let's go back into here. Let's go to Edit Family. Because I think pretty much most of the time we're going to want to show our area. But maybe we don't have volume anymore. So we're just going to click up here. And if you remember from the family exercise, this is our edit type when you be in your project. So we're going to click on that. And we're just going to delete the show volume one because we don't have a volume. And we don't have a room number, so we're going to delete that as well. And so then this volume one we'll delete. And so we just have area with area and without area. So let's click OK, so that's good. And if we go back to this, our area text size is maybe a little bit big for this. So I'm going to go to Edit Type, and I'm going to create another text size. And I'm going to call this, well, let's do 1/32. 1/32 is a little bit small for our text size, but I think for the purpose of this, it actually might be fine because it's kind of like sub-context. You don't really need to know the area, but it's there if you need it. So it's not that important of data. So let's just see how this looks. We could go the reverse and make the text size a little bit bigger for that. But let's just see how this looks. This might look fine. I'm not going to make it as close as I had it before. Make that a little bit down. So let's load that in. Let's see what that looks like. And we'll click Override Parameter. We always want to do this bottom one. And just to be sure, let's just click this. So it kept the with volume setting. So to remove that, I'm just going to actually go down here to Families in the project browser. I'm going to go to Annotation Symbols. We're going to find our GBC room tag. And we're going to go here to With Volume, and we're just going to hit Delete if it lets us. It might not let us. It's not letting us delete that one. All right, well, we'll just leave it. But so now we have this area tag, and we can kind of see that what our area is on our sheet. What is... Yeah, so we have this on our sheet. Again, you might find that this is a little bit small of text. You might find it's too big. So you can certainly play with that size depending on what you need. You could also duplicate this and have a second one that has smaller text size. So room tags are really nice. In your project, you see how this blue outer line is going to the edge of the inside. So these room tags do not count the area of the walls. And so in your outline, we have kind of an extra area to account for that. And so I think that's fine. I think we want to keep it that way. We're only going to show the actual area of those rooms. So there we have the room tags. The other thing I wanted to go over is this tag. This is a view tag. I think view tags are great, but for a design project, we might not want to show that. We might just want to grab our view and not bring the room tag with it, and then we can just add our own room tag or our own view tag in Photoshop or Illustrator. And so what I typically will do is when I have a view, up here we have this viewport 1. Let's click edit type, and we're going to call this view title. And I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call this no title. And we're going to go over here where it says show title, and I'm going to turn that off. And so now, if I have this open, it's not going to show title. And so if I want that title back, I just click the view, and I go up here where it says view title, and I change from no title to view title, and our title will be back. And then the next thing I sometimes do, we'll go to edit type here, and I actually will turn off the extension line. I find the extension lines really annoying, so I usually leave them off like this. So it's just a view title without the extension line. And so we have our site plan set up, we have our floor plan set up, and the last thing, I'm going to do two more things. One, I'm just going to add some elevations. So I'll do elevations. I'm going to do a 3D section, and then I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you how to build a ramp on the site. So I'm just going to do a couple more things with this. So let's go to our elevations. I'm not going to put them all on sheets, but we bring our elevation on here, and we have our topography and all that kind of stuff. Let's crop this view, and let's double click. We'll turn on the crop view. And one thing I like to do a lot with drawings is if I bring it on the sheet like this and it's like really massive, it's a little bit cumbersome to like edit it in and do all that. So what I'll often do is I'll deactivate view. I'll actually delete this view from here. I'll open up the view first, and I will turn on my crop boundaries for this, and I'll turn them on and just bring this in a little bit, and bring this side in a little bit, and bring this up. Maybe show a little bit of topography. And with these, I'm going to do a couple things. One is I'm going to grab on, we're going to go to VG, and let's go to our topo solid, and these settings would be the same for topography. So I'm actually just going to grab them both at the same time. I'm just using the control button on the keyboard, and we can go to override cut pattern. What I will typically do is either make my topography black, gray, or white. And so it just depends on what you want to show. So if you want to show like a really thick ground and you want it to be there, you can make it gray or black. If you want it to kind of disappear, I make my grade line thick. And so I'm just going to show you what a couple of those look like. So let's go to our background pattern. Let's go to solid, and we can make this gray. And then I'm going to turn off my foreground pattern. And then I'm going to go to my cut line. I'm actually going to do my cut line and my projection line, just so that if we have, we're not cutting through a topography exactly, those will show. So let's go here. I'm going to make this the same as we did with the property lines. Let's make it like an 8, so it's very thick. And then we'll make this, I actually don't think we need to override anything else with that. And then we'll do the same with the projection line. We'll make that our, I think I clicked the wrong button there. Oh, I want, yeah, click the wrong button there. We'll make this an 8 as well. And let's click apply. And so you can just see how instantly that topography just looks a lot simpler. So that's what it looks like with it being gray. I kind of prefer sometimes for this just to be white. And I think it's just simple. You see, what did I do? I think I did it for topography, not for both, yeah. I sometimes prefer just to be this, because then it looks like the building is sitting on the site. And then obviously the other option is to do it as black, and it completely up to you what color you want to use for this. I think both kind of communicate differently. So I just don't like that earth hatch. I think that earth hatch it screams like this was made in Revit, you know. So I think this kind of makes it a little bit more generic. And a couple other things we might want to do, and I might actually, yeah, let's leave that as black for now. These level lines, they're a little bit heavy looking. So if we go up here, we can turn off the, what do we turn off? Grid head circle. So we can make this level head no bubble, and it's going to turn off that little bubble at the end. And so I think that actually looks way simpler. And then we have our line pattern here. Our line pattern right now, it's grid 1/2. We could change this line here if we want. So we could make it a solid line. We could make it we could just make it a dot. So it's kind of there, but it's not really in your face. So let's stick with the dot. And so kind of a nice way to make that, keep that stuff there, but it's not overly overpowering with your view. And this starts to not look as much like Revit. I mean, it starts to look more like just a design drawing you did in Photoshop or Illustrator. So so I think that's kind of nice. So let's bring this down onto one of our sheets here. So let's find a sheet. And then we're just going to replicate some of those same settings again for another view. So let's put that on there. And again, we can turn off our view title if we just want to show that view. For the elevations, it might be just handy to keep the view titles on. And we might be able to get a second one on the same sheet. So I'm just going to go to north here. And I'm going to turn on the crop box. And again, just because this view is so big right now, I like to do this before I bring it on the sheet. And I think that just makes my life a little bit easier. Kind of center this up a little bit. And really the only thing we have to change is the topography. So let's go to VG. And there is a way, as I mentioned, with view templates to do this for both at the same time. But I'm just going to do this here. Sorry, we're going to turn off our foreground, make that solid black there. I'm just going to make this no override. We'll turn on this. We're going to make this a line weight of 8. And we're going to make this have a line weight of 8 as well. And let's click apply. And our building is above our topography, and so that's why it's showing as such. So yeah, so that looks a little bit better. Let's drag that onto a sheet now. And I think very quickly you start to have a little bit cleaner of a set of drawings. And they just communicate, I think, a little bit better. So let's just move. I'm just going to move these view titles so they're kind of in line with the bottom here. And then I'm going to remove that down a little bit. So we've got our two views there. We have our section tag. I'm not going to go over editing the section tag today. Maybe I'll do that next week just to clean up that graphics a little bit. But two last things. So one is sections. So for your building, we have this section already placed, cutting through here. And we can apply some of those same settings for here. I love sections, but I think there's a better way to do them for the context of studio. And if you think about that page that's on your first, I think it's like the third or fourth page in, we have that big section of the sustainable detail in your outline. And so I want to kind of recreate that. So let's go to our level 1. And so our section is facing to the right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a camera view. So we're going to go to 3D view camera. And we're going to try to line this up with the middle of our building. And it doesn't have to be exact, but we're going to do our best. So I'm going to bring it out like this. And we're going to kind of go through our building. And we're going to bring our camera view past. So we've clicked on one side, and we're going to click past on the other side. And so now our 3D view looks like this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go here and turn on our section box in our camera view. And we're going to go back to our level 1. And what we can do is we can right click on our camera view, and we can go to show section box. And now we can take this section box and we can bring it in and match it up with our section line. And when we go back to our 3D view, now this view is being cut. And so I think this is a way better way. We can actually hide this. You don't want to turn off the section box. We can just hide it here. But I think this is now a way better way of communicating a section for your studio classes, because you can see depth, you can see perspective in this, and so I think it just looks and communicates a little bit better. So let's just do a few graphical things. Let's go to VG, and let's go down to our topography and topo solids. Again, I'm just going to hold Control and edit these both at the same time. We can add we're going to turn off foreground pattern. We're going to add a solid fill black background pattern. Let's add a solid cut line. So let's make this cut line as 8, and we don't need to do an override. So click OK. And I'm only going to do that. I'm not going to do the projection line on these ones because I know we're cutting through because it is a section. Let's go to our walls here, and let's add a solid fill, or actually, sorry, let's add a solid fill to the back here. So let's go to solid fill, and we can make this a bit of a darker gray. So our walls are now gray, and we can do that same gray on the walls. So I like to grab the walls. I'm just going to hold the Control button. Roof. We want roof. We want floor. We're probably not going to have ceilings, but I'm going to grab ceilings anyways. Ceilings. And we're going to add that same gray cut pattern. And what that's going to do is it's going to, every time we draw one of those elements, I think we did 140. Every time we draw one of those elements, it's going to make it gray. So let's go back to our first floor, and let's go to here, and let's just draw a floor. And we're going to go to pick walls and grab these walls, and let's just click our check mark. And let's look at this in 3D. And so now you can see our floor automatically has that same cut pattern. So this starts to give you a little bit of a better, simpler graphical language. And you can see this view, we don't have our level lines going across because it is a camera view, it's a perspective view. But we would, in our actual section, we have those level lines going across. And so you could apply those same things. I think for sections, it's better to just show this perspective section. So we could just rename this as well as just 3D section 1. But I think these views communicate a little bit better, so I tend to recommend showing these over just a traditional section because they look better. And I think when it comes to your boards, I think you want to have one section that is the big gesture, which is the that shows kind of all your sustainability features, and this is how you want to do it. You want to use these sectional perspectives to kind of create that big gesture for your studio class. So that's that. Last thing I'm going to show for today is just drawing a pathway. And so we have this topo solid here. It is the sidewalk is actually part of the topo solid. And so typically what I recommend for pathway is I would typically do it as a floor. And so we're going to go up to the architecture tab, and we're going to go to floor. And what we're going to do is we're going to find a connection point. So if you've been to site, you might find that maybe part of this area is a little bit flatter. But essentially what I'm going to do is I might do something like this. We're going to create a straight kind of connection and do something like that. And we'll come over to here, kind of flatten out. And because this is a bicycle pathway, I'm going to maybe make it a little bit wider. So let's make it 8 feet. And we're going to do an offset of 8 here. I'm just going to offset these lines a little bit. And try to get... we might add a radius to these to make these look a little bit nicer. So let's go here. Let's add a little bit of, not that button. Go here and add a little bit of an angle. And maybe go here and add a bit of an angle. That'll make it look a little bit more organic and less rigid. I'm actually going to turn off my line weights so I can actually see these lines a little bit better. Yeah, looks like that one is already connected. And I'm just going to connect that dot there. And we'll trim these up here. And so we want to get this to go up to our building. And so how we get there is a little bit up to you. But I'm just going to start by kind of drawing a pathway maybe to the back of the building. And then I think this same pathway, we want to draw kind of going out to the other side of the property. And remember, we don't want to cut down trees or anything, so you want to try to avoid some of that vegetation. But we want to bring this pathway all the way over here. And then I'm just going to use this offset and go to offset of 8. You could probably make it a little bit bigger of an offset, but we're just going to use this to kind of create these lines going over here. And then I'll just use the fillet or the trim and extend button here to clean those up and clean that one up. And we'll just delete this line here. And I think I just have one more to add just at the bottom here. And so that's kind of the easy part of this. The next part is not necessarily hard, just more time consuming. And so the one thing you'll see right away is now we have a piece of topography floating in the air. And so this part's a little bit more work. And so what we're going to do, just like we did with Topo Solids in Revit 2024, we're going to kind of do that same approach with this. So we're going to click Modify Sub-Elements. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select a bunch of these lines. And we're going to go, let's click negative 10. So that's not steep enough. So let's go to negative 12. So that starts to get a little bit closer. Maybe these we need to bring up. So let's maybe make this negative 10. Maybe this part needs to be negative 10 as well. And then this looks like it needs to slope down to our site. And so we're just going to go over this whole part and just edit it so that we're kind of sitting above or around the edge of the topography. I think this one actually might be high now. Right, so now we're just going to continue to follow this topography and just try to get this floor close to the edge of that topography. We just kind of want to lower it until it kind of starts to disappear. And then I'm just going to grab this other point and we'll just go negative 9, so we'll make that the same. And so it looks like it just needs to be brought up a little bit. And so again, we just want to make that path and follow that path with our topography, and that's kind of how you create a path. There are some ways to make it look a little bit better. I typically will try to bury it. So if we have a 12-inch slab, and that's probably what I'd recommend using, I would try to bury it so maybe only 2 or 3 inches are sticking out. And so remember, we don't really want to edit the topography too much, but I think adding a pathway, especially for a bike shop, I think would be important, right? So, and then over here on the back side, we actually need to do the reverse. Actually, I'm just going to fix this one since it's a little high. And let's lower this one down a little bit. Negative 3. And then we have these ones over here that need to be raised up. So it's actually not that hard. It's just a little bit of tedious work to kind of adjust these points. And we just want to make this kind of stick out just a little bit out of our topography. And that's probably the easiest way to do a path. That kind of makes sense. Any questions about the pathway? And let's just go back to our site and let's just see how that looks. So on our site, it looks like this. Maybe on our site, what we can do is we can grab our sidewalk, and let's click on this material on this sidewalk. And let's make it, our foreground powder is sand. Let's just make this a solid fill. And let's make our sidewalk to be a light gray, maybe 220 gray. And so our sidewalk's a light gray. And then we'll do the same with this concrete slab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to duplicate this. I'm just going to call it 12-inch sidewalk. And we're just going to change our material to be that same. So we'll just change our material to be that concrete sidewalk material. And it should have that same color now in here. And I'm just going to do one more thing. You see how there's all those lines inside the sidewalk, all these kind of jagged lines? So if we go back to our VG and we go down to our floors, if we turn off folding lines, it will remove those little jagged edges. So now you just kind of see the outline of that sidewalk. And so, I think really quickly within I mean, this was probably 40 minutes. We've kind of really updated, 45 minutes. We've updated the graphics of this quite a bit, made it quite a bit simpler. And you can kind of see how you'd access your building. You see where your building is on your site. And so those are a few things you can utilize in your studio project to kind of present a little bit better from a graphical perspective in the next few weeks. I'll give some thought to what we'll cover next week, but maybe I'll do another video next week on kind of doing a few things just to kind of get you ready for your studio project. So, any questions before I end this about the studio, like with this?
Yeah. So the area of that building, for example, it has to be 72.36 meters square, right?
Whatever it's in the outline.
Okay. Yeah, because I just saw 72.36 meters square. So. And I'll see how.
Is that what I put on here?
I don't know, since that's not mine, so.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So as long as you follow the outline, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll follow the outline.
Yeah. And I might make this a little bit darker. Let's make this 180. Just kind of too close to the color of the sidewalk there. So yeah, so that's the topography. And so now you have some sheets to print. And the last step is obviously just printing these. So I'm just gonna print a really quick one, and let's turn off the title on this view. And so let's just print a really quick sheet. So let's go to export up here, and we're gonna just set up a couple things here. First thing I'm gonna set up is our export type. So I'm gonna use sheet size. We're gonna go zoom 100%. What zoom 100% means, it's gonna, regardless of there being a margin on the sheet, it's going to make sure that outer line of our title block is the outer line of the sheet, which is what we want. If there's a margin and it won't print on the margin, we don't care, because we just want the sheet to match the scale. So we want zoom to 100%. We want to use sheet size. We want that to be center. And so I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to go to save as. I'm going to go per title block. And the reason why I write that is this is actually a new update. So use sheet size as a new setting. And basically means whatever your title block says the sheet size is, that's what it prints it as. So it's actually a really great setting because it makes our lives, I think, a lot simpler. So the next thing we're going to do is set up our views and sheets. We're going to click edit. And we're going to go down here and we're going to select all of our sheets. I usually don't export from a view. And we'll just click select. Actually, I need to do save. So let's save this. And we're going to call this all sheets. And we probably need to select this again. So select all those, save as current set, and select. I'm just going to actually click close for 1 second because I don't think I put that 3D view on a sheet. So let's put our 3D section on the sheet here. And again, remember with the 3D sections, we have to size and crop. We can't change the scale because they're scaleless. We want to click down here to scale. And we want to make this 12. And so now that kind of fills the sheet a little better. You can actually see our sidewalk coming into our building. It looks a little jagged, but we want to obviously fix that and make it a little smoother. But that works for this. And so let's just go back to export. We should have all our settings. So our all sheets are saved. Per title block is saved. Now we just want to browse to our folder. and we'll just click, actually I'll save this in this folder, and we'll call this studio, and I always do my dates, so I'll go 2024 underscore 1122, and I just save my dates like that just so it follows or it organizes by naming convention in the folders properly. And so we'll click that, and then within a second here, we should have our PDF. And so now we have this really simple PDF showing our building. We actually should hide that floor in the floor plans. So let me reprint that. And so let's go back to our floor plan here. Let's go to our level 1 and let's hide this this path. And then we'll go to our roof and let's see if that shows. Yeah, it does show up on our roof as well. Let's hide that path there as well. And let's just go to re-export. And I actually can't remember. I think I wrote Studio 2024 1122. And then if I have another file, so if I've already printed one and I want to save that version, I sometimes add the timestamp, so I'll add 915 as a timestamp. And that's my method of saving files. And that way you don't have next, final, finalist, final, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's my secret to not having that. So we have some really clean drawings now. Really simple drawings you can present in Studio. And so that was really my goal of today, is kind of show you how to build a really simple, clean set of drawings. So hopefully that helps. And we'll maybe do another little video next week.
You don't necessarily need 2 pathways, do you?
No, you don't. No, you don't need 2 pathways. Does that help with the sidewalk? So down here we have that retaining wall. I think I personally think it would be fine to cut that retaining wall a little bit. But you might want to check with your studio professor if they would let you do that or not. Otherwise, you'd want to have that pathway coming from this side that's flat. So whatever your studio professor kind of says in regards to that. So
We can have 2 exits, right? Or just 1?
you can have 2 exits.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking about the front exit and the back exit.
Yeah. The only difficult part with the one exit is one exit's flush with the ground, one exit's probably raising the ground. So if you have another exit, you as long as you have one exit that's accessible, I think that's fine. The other exit could just be stairs.
Right,
Yeah.
because it's not actually residential in its term. So
Yeah. Cool.
since it's a bike repair shop and it contains lots of energy in its term, then I would prefer 2 exits, just
Yeah.
to make it a lot safer.
For sure. All right, I think that's it for this video. I'm going to pause this.